Okay, one drink, but I'm buying.
Okay, but it's an open bar.
When Melanie Griffith was growing up, she had a pet lion named Neil that stayed in her house. Did you know that? Or the fact that she began living with Don Johnson when she was just 14 years old, while he was 22 years old at the time. Throughout her life, she has always felt as if she is living in a movie. Her life is flashy, chaotic, and unpredictable, and it is frequently painful. During the height of her career, she was ubiquitous and working girl, in which she played the role of the poster girl for Hollywood in the late 1980s, made her a household name. She was beautiful, talented, and came from a family of prominent people. Melanie Griffith has gradually lost her place among the most famous people in the world. This has occurred throughout the course of the awards, the stays in rehabilitation, and the controversies that have erupted in the tabloids. What exactly transpired? That is the question that I am asking. Melanie Griffith, who was born on August 9, 1957, has the distinction of being a member of Hollywood aristocracy. Her father, Peter Griffith, had previously worked as an actress in children's roles but later transitioned to a career in advertising. Her mother, Tippi Hedren, was a blonde bombshell who gained notoriety for her role in Hitchcock's film The Birds. However, there was a price to pay for spending one's childhood in the public eye. When she was just 9 months old, her parents split. Her mother's position as one of Alfred Hitchcock's protégés resulted in her spending a significant portion of her youth either on film sets or in the company of industry elites. Tippi states that Hitchcock became infatuated, even possessive, and that this tension seeped into their family life as a result. It left behind some marks. When Melanie was a teenager, she was gorgeous, rebellious, and fragile. She began working as a model when she was 9 years old, and by the time she was a teenager, she was also acting. After that, when she was just 14 years old, she encountered Don Johnson, who was 22 at the time, on the set of The Harad Experiment, a movie in which her mother played a leading role. The beginning of a relationship that would be lengthy and contentious, which would go on to characterize a significant portion of her early years as an adult, was marked by this event. The majority of people are aware of the well-known parts that she has played. There are fewer people who are aware of the turbulent and frequently perilous nature of the years leading up to their arrival. Her first foray into the world of filmmaking was in the early 1970s, when she made her debut as an actress in the low-budget drama Women Crush Wednesdays. This was followed by a minor but noteworthy performance in Arthur Penn's neo-noir film Night Moves, which was released in 1975. Her early roles did not elevate her to celebrity status, but they did bring her to the attention of the public and suggested that she was capable of achieving greater things in the future. Body Double, which was directed by Brian De Palma and released in 1984, was one of the most significant early performances for Melanie Griffith. It was a film that was steeped in both voyeuristic obsession and Hitchcockian style. It was a dangerous position to take on, but she performed the part of Holly Body, a pornographic film actress who finds herself embroiled in a murder case. Melanie managed to handle the situation with a surprising amount of composure, despite the fact that it was provocative, disturbing, and purposely layered. Her acting has a sharpness that cuts through the filth and satire that are there throughout the entire film. It is a significant accomplishment, particularly in a film that navigates a very fine line between the genres of psychological horror and sensual thriller. What is perhaps more intriguing is the sense of returning to the beginning that is present in everything. She was now starring in a movie that was greatly influenced by Alfred Hitchcock's work. This was despite the fact that she was the daughter of Tippi Hedren, who famously battled with Hitchcock over his dictatorial behavior while they were on the set of The Birds. De Palma's obsession with voyeurism was not all that different from that of Hitchcock, and Melanie's performance in Body Double, when viewed in retrospect, seems to be an odd and ironic echo of her mother's past. The film received mixed reviews from critics, but Melanie Griffith's performance was praised by practically everyone, who described it as unforgettable. She was making a statement, not simply playing a supporting role. In the year 1986, Something Wild was released, and this one is an absolute treasure. The picture, which is directed by Jonathan Demme, is a wild ride that crosses the boundaries of multiple genres. Melanie portrays Lulu, a lady who is impetuous and carefree. She effectively abducts Jeff Daniels, who plays a character that is buttoned up, for a road trip that is spontaneous. Over time, this road trip evolves into something that is far more dangerous and sinister. She was given the opportunity to be utterly unpredictable in the role, to be both captivating and deranged. Not only is it a performance that is both wild and underestimated, but it also serves as a testament to her amazing variety. The movie itself was considered to be ahead of its time. Melanie was the center of gravity once again as the story combined elements of screwball comedy with a steady decline into noir. Two films that did not take the easy way out and two performances in the film Working Girl. Melanie Griffith dresses up in a suit for the boardroom. But before that, in one of the most bizarre low-budget science fiction films of the 1980s, Cherry 2000, she takes on the role of a full-fledged action heroine. Even though it was filmed 2 years prior, it was not released until 1987, and this one is a genuine treasure trove for video stores. I recall renting it when I was a child, and I did not really have any idea of what to anticipate. But what I got was Melanie Griffith in the desert, carrying a rocket launcher, and assisting some unfortunate individual in rescuing his sex robot, which was behaving erratically, from a barren wasteland in a dystopian future. Yes, you are correct in your understanding of the information. She embodies the character of E. Johnson, who is a tracker dressed in leather clothing and an expert in traversing the dangerous Zone 7. In addition, she is fully at ease when she wears it. The production has this bizarre combination of neon-lit futurism, quirky sarcasm, and the adrenaline of Mad Max. And although the tone is a little bit all over the place, with the film going from a romantic comedy 1 minute to a shootout the next, it nevertheless manages to work in that late-night cult kind of manner. She carried that momentum with her, and it helped her land the most significant job of her career thus far, a role that would turn her into a household star. After that, in 1988, Working Girl was released, which would go on to be a career-defining film. Melanie Griffith won the hearts of viewers from all around the world with her portrayal of Tess McGill, the ambitious secretary from Staten Island who had lofty aspirations and a voice that was a little rough. She was humorous and completely believable, in addition to being emotional and honest. The movie itself is full of talented people. Sigourney Weaver portrays her character's employer, who is calculating and merciless. It appears that she is really enjoying the role she plays in the film. Harrison Ford, who was probably the most famous celebrity at the time, makes the startling decision to take a back seat, serve the story rather than dominating it, and the supporting cast is equally loaded. Tessa's boyfriend, who is portrayed as a sleazy character, is played by a young Alec Baldwin, while Joan Cusack steals the show as her noisy but faithful best friend. Kevin Spacey even makes a brief, almost unnoticeable appearance as a sleazy passenger in a limousine. Everyone is working at their full capacity. And to be honest, I have always been a fan of Working Girl, and I still am. As a matter of fact, we would have been in good shape if they had made more films like this one, despite the fact that people frequently state that there were not many movies with female leads in those days. You have two extremely feminine protagonists, an excellent storyline, and a perfect balance of heart and humor. In addition, it serves as an excellent snapshot of the business world throughout the 1980s. Yes, you have people who are using typewriters and wearing large shoulder pads. Therefore, although certain sections have undergone some visual aging, the overall pacing, tone, and coherence of the entire thing are still completely on point. The warmth that is present throughout the entire film is something that people continue to respond to. This is the one that works, and it holds up, according to everyone I know who has seen it. I can't seem to find anyone who disagrees with me. Melanie received a nomination for an Academy Award for the performance, won a Golden Globe for it, and found herself at the top of every casting list overnight. She had made the transition from a controversial actress to Hollywood's golden girl in the space of only a few years. Greetings. If you are finding these in-depth retrospectives to be enjoyable and would like to assist in supporting the channel, you are more than welcome to purchase a cup of coffee for me by clicking on the link provided below. Each and every contribution assists me in continuing to produce these narratives. Now, let's return to the narrative about Melanie. After the success of Working Girl, Melanie Griffith became the face of a new form of celebrity. It was a type of stardom that was based as much on charisma and vulnerability as it was on glamour. She was neither the cold-hearted femme fatale nor the diva who demanded a lot of attention. Her smile was warm and inviting. and her voice had a kind of gruff quality to it. She also had just enough of a hint of danger in her eyes to keep you on your toes. She stood out in a big way because she felt very human in a decade that was preoccupied with beauty. The media could not get enough of it. Her image was printed in every publication, including Vogue, Rolling Stone, and Vanity Fair, and she was present on every red carpet. Additionally, she began to receive offers for parts that challenged her to explore new territory. She portrayed the character of a young woman in a relationship who purchases a Victorian home in San Francisco in 1990 and then decides to rent out a room in the house to a tenant who is mentally unstable. Michael Keaton played the role of the psychotic renter, and it was one of the most unhinged performances of his career. Matthew Modine played the role of her partner in the film, which was set in Pacific Heights. Melanie's performance in the movie is genuine and intriguing, and the film itself is an underestimated thriller that is full of tension. In the film, she plays the role of the realist rather than that of the victim. She is shown as someone who is exhausted by the lunacy that is unraveling around her. Although the movie is not a box office behemoth, it has stood the test of time surprisingly well. The film is slick, vicious, and unnerving in all of the best ways, and Griffith more than holds her own against both Modine's anxious energy and Keaton's chaos. The Bonfire of the Vanities, which was also released in 1990, was the next film to be released. This was a big-budget adaptation of Tom Wolfe's best-selling novel of the same name, directed by Brian De Palma and starring Tom Hanks and Bruce Willis, with Melanie playing the role of Maria Ruskin, the Southern belle who is at the center of the scandal. The movie was a complete failure despite the fact that it ought to have been an easy success. Bonfire went on to become a cautionary tale about Hollywood's excesses and miscasting, since it was rejected by moviegoers, garnered negative reviews from critics, and was notoriously pulled apart by Vanity Fair's expose on what went on behind the scenes. Melanie's performance, albeit being commendable in its own way, was overshadowed by the surrounding commotion. The movie was a colossal failure, and the industry began to wonder if Griffith's momentum after Working Girl could truly be sustained. After that, in 1991, she appeared in Paradise, a film that was more intimate and subdued than her previous works. She acted in the film alongside Don Johnson, who was her husband at the time. The story revolves around a couple that is experiencing grief and had taken in a young kid for the summer. It is an emotional drama that unfolds at a leisurely pace. And while the film did not shatter any records, it did provide Melanie with the opportunity to relax. At this point, she is more emotionally vulnerable and has a less styled appearance than in her past performances, where she was more made up. It has a certain intimacy about it, and you can sense the sorrow in her performance, so it is possible that some of it was not acting. However, following Working Girl, there was this assumption that she would become the next Julia Roberts or Michelle Pfeiffer. That is, someone who could star in a series of blockbuster films and romantic leads without skipping a beat. However, the attraction that Melanie possessed was of a different nature. It was not very easy to confine her to a specific category. She was both unpredictable and vulnerable, a combination that made her incredibly interesting to see, but it also made it more difficult for the industry to control her. Hollywood, particularly during that period of time, did not always treat females with kindness when they dared to venture outside of the boundaries that had been established. Even worse, the media started to turn their attention to other things. The stories that were hitting the news were no longer about her performances, even if her films were still being released. They concerned her physical appearance, her stays in rehabilitation, and her marriage. The very same media outlets that had previously declared her to be one of Hollywood's golden girls began to prepare their knives for her. However, the attention that came with that limelight brought with it a great deal of strain. It was becoming increasingly apparent that her personal life was beginning to exhibit signs of wear and tear, as the cracks were going to become visible beneath the magazine covers and movie deals. Melanie Griffith's professional existence had begun to be overshadowed by the events of her personal life by the early 1990s. She had been forthright about her lengthy battle with addiction, and occasionally she had even been brutally honest about it. Alcohol, cocaine, and prescription drugs are all examples of substances. This was not merely a trend that was part of the Hollywood party scene. It was a combination of survival, chaos, and self-destruction all rolled into a single package. Immediately after Working Girl was released, She made the decision to get treatment for the first time, entering rehabilitation in 1988. However, the path to recovery was not a straight line. She had sought treatment on a number of occasions throughout the course of the next 20 years. In 2000 and then again in 2009, with each occurrence being followed by a series of headlines taking her beauty, her professional life, or her personal relationships apart piece by piece, and the media were relentless. This period of time was the height of the tabloid culture's most unattractive aspects. She would be relentlessly pursued by paparazzi at airports, during events, and during her most vulnerable times. The rumors about plastic surgery started to circulate, and they were more severe than any criticism she had received for her performances. She was the target of ridicule due to her appearance, the way she spoke, and even the way she smiled. On the other hand, Melanie was not interested in concealing her troubles, although the majority of stars attempted to keep their challenges secret. She disclosed the times when she had experienced a relapse. She discussed her time in rehabilitation, and she arrived at interviews looking exhausted, weary, and like a person. Honesty made her even more intriguing in a certain way, but it also made her an easy target for those who wanted to take advantage of her. The number of jobs that were available began to decrease in the late 1990s, and casting directors moved on to other projects. Studios stopped calling, and this was not because she had lost her talent. It was because she was perceived as being unpredictable. The public image of Melanie Griffith has always been intertwined with her personal life. She was married 4 times, with 2 of her marriages being to Don Johnson. She had connections with high-profile individuals, and these relationships were frequently featured in tabloid magazines. However, the relationship she had with Antonio Banderas, who is an actor from Spain, was the longest and most discussed of all her relationships. In 1995, while working on the set of Too Much, a romantic comedy that failed to make a significant impact on critics but did have a profound impact on her life outside of the film, the two first encountered one another. Despite the fact that they were both married at the time, they had an undeniable connection with one another. They were both married to each other and had already filed for divorce by the year 1996. That very year, Melanie gave birth to their daughter, who they named Stella. It is uncommon in Hollywood for a couple to stay together for almost 2 decades, but they were able to do it. For a period of time, they were considered to be one of the most successful and popular couples in the industry. They were constantly presented to the public as total opposites who were able to make it work. Melanie's approach to achieving fame was characterized by her volatility, her emotional nature, and her unmistakably American style. Meanwhile, Antonio was grounded, suave, and well-respected in Europe. However, the cracks began to appear in the early 2010s, and after enduring physical health challenges, employment changes, and multiple spells in rehabilitation, the couple made the decision to quietly announce their divorce in 2014. The divorce was finalized the following year. It did not have a bitter taste. As a matter of fact, both individuals have spoken of one another in a positive manner ever since then. Scylla's family has even received phone calls from Banderas, who has expressed his admiration for the way they reared Scylla together. I have always had the feeling that they were deeply in love with one another, but their love was unable to withstand the constant scrutiny of the public eye. Although there were still positions available, they were more specialized and on a smaller scale. She performed in theater, including a run on Broadway in Chicago in 2003, when she played the part of Roxy Hart. She was exceptionally talented. Critics were taken aback by this. Despite the fact that a few people who had previously dismissed her acknowledged that fact, the revelation did not revive her career in the film industry. Dakota Johnson, her daughter, has achieved fame and success on her own merit, having played the lead role in a wide range of films, from Persuasion to The Lost Daughter to 50 Shades of Grey. Melanie has also maintained tight relationships with her other children. Stellanette Banderas, from her marriage to Antonio Banderas, and Alexander Bauer, from her marriage to Stephen Bauer. She has also been forthcoming about her health, which includes a history of epileptic seizures. She claims that the seizures have decreased in frequency and severity since the stress of her second divorce has subsided. Melanie Griffith would most likely not be remembered as the actor with the greatest discipline or the most consistency, but the contribution that she made to audiences, particularly during her best moments, was something that was a little more difficult to come by. Truthfulness, vulnerability, and messiness she allowed you to view her. even when it was unflattering. And there were times when it was particularly so, especially when it was not flattering. She was both infuriating and lovable, and she was known for her charisma and unpredictability during her most successful period. She took a lot of risks, and she paid a high price for them, yet she still managed to find her way through the chaos. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. If you found this video entertaining, you are more than welcome to leave a like, and you can also let me know in the comments section what your favorite Melanie Griffith performance is. Perhaps it's Working Girl, Something Wild, or perhaps one of the deep cuts that we discussed in this video. Additionally, if you are visiting this website for the first time, you should subscribe to receive additional in-depth explorations of the actors, films, and previously untold tales that have had an impact on an entire generation. I am eagerly anticipating the opportunity to see all of your faces in the next one. But until then, I bid you farewell.